Good morning, everybody. This is Mike Hudson, along with my cohort, my co-host, and man of the times, Mr. Greg Traynor. This is Accessible Hunter Podcast. I thank you guys for joining us today, and it's going to be a little bit different. Each week we say that, but I think this is going to be one of those ones for all the people out there with disabilities. You guys will get it. You'll plug in a little bit, but first off, man, how are you doing out there today, Greg?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. I been struggling a little bit with my breathing lately, but it's still a good day. And man, I had a really good week. We had some work done out down on the farmhouse, and finally
Yeah.
have heating and air conditioning. So I'm loving life, man. It's a good time, even if I don't sound good. I'm having a good day.
Man, that's the thing with disabilities. I know with spinal cord injury, I tell people all the time, I don't know how I'm going to feel from day to day. I may have a fantastic day today. I go to bed and I wake up the next day and I'm just struggling. Some of it could be mental, some of it physical, but it seems like with my injury, and I'm speaking solely from my personal aspects. Um, there are days, man, where I don't know, I have a disconnect. Um, and I try to jump back in and be 110%, but sometimes, man, it's just it it is what it is, man. You hate to say it that way, but at the same token, we see it a lot of times with events and whatnot. You set up an event, you go through all this stuff, just like our podcast this week. We had put in place that we were going to have some folks, and they just, going through some stuff right now that, um, it's just part of the spinal cord injury.
That's exactly right. We kind of make plans in daily life just like everybody, but I don't think sometimes people understand if you have a significant disability, how difficult it can be to schedule things and follow through with it. My body acts really weird. Over the last 3 days, I'm in pain somehow, some way, and my body reacts to pain where I get congested and start coughing. So my throat right now is just all tore up from coughing the last 3 days. It sounds like I have a really bad cold, but that's not it. It's my body reacting to pain, and I get congested and have to do some nebulizer treatments and things like that. But we're gonna push on together and see what today brings.
Man, that's the thing with the spinal cord injury. It manifests itself so weird in our bodies. You know, um, Sometimes, not to get too much information out there, but if I'm having to go to the restroom a certain way, my body dictates pain. If I fall and get hurt, I may or may not feel it because of my complete injury. But then other times, man, I could bump my butt with a sliding board and it feels like somebody kicked me right in the hind end. And it's so bizarre. There's sometimes it's just like spasticity. There's no rhyme or reason as to what brings it on. We try to learn our bodies, but over the 29 years that I've been hurt, I figured out real quick, man. The more I try to figure it out and get into a routine, the more it just compounds and throws me for a loop, brother.
That, that's the fact, and we have to listen to our bodies more now than ever. I mean,
Sure.
when I was in my 20s and able-bodied, I could make my body do things that I didn't think I should be able to do. Kind of mind
100%.
over matter. But right now at 56 with my spinal cord injury, I got to listen to it a little bit more and pay
Hmm.
attention. And if I don't, then I pay the price. If I try to say, well, I'm going to go to this event, I told people I would be there, and I just create more problems for myself if I
Right.
try to really don't listen to my body. Now, I'm not saying that we don't power through and kind of try to take care of business when we have to, but man, every time I don't listen to my body, I end up paying the price.
I think that's the kicker. I've mentioned it to you, and I'm sure I've said it on a couple podcasts. Um, Everybody wants to give us the term or the title inspiration or motivational speaker or whatever. Um, I'm gonna tell you, man, most days when I wake up in the morning, there's a slight hesitation in me getting up. And I'm like, what am I doing this for? What am I getting up for today? But it's slight, only lasts for a second. And then I'm like, all right, let's get after it. And, I take the bath, get up, and then we go. Um, I've learned over time that that is inspirational. It's inspirational to myself as well, because there's so many people that don't power through. They don't take that instant second and just say, you know what? Yeah, today's going to kind of suck. Or, I don't really know what I'm going to get into today. That's the day probably they're going to be the biggest blessing for somebody else. But we just have to make that conscious decision that, yes, our bodies are different. Yes, our circumstances are different. We do have a lot of ailments, and that's not excuses. I get cold real easy. I'm not tolerant to heat. Um, like you said, pain sometimes manifests itself weird. Um, a lot of times I want to go on trips or go on travel, and boom, all of a sudden a UTI out of the blue, or just crazy stuff. And Greg, you know it better than I do, brother. The spinal cord injury itself, not to be Debbie Downer, the injury is not the problem. It's all the secondary stuff.
Absolutely, man. That's hitting the nail right on the head. And it's also about staying consistent. We mentioned that sometimes you don't want to do something, but after you get there, you're glad you went.
Right.
It's working through the problem sometimes as well. It's kind of a delicate balance between listening, not doing something, pushing yourself to that limit. And everyone's limit is different, and everyone knows what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
We just have to, be smart about things.
Man, you're right on the money. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk to you and share it. And I think a lot more people see it. Whether it's family or friends or whatever, they've learned over time. I don't ever want somebody to give me sympathy. I want people to understand our plight. I don't usually share the negative parts of it because I want to stay focused on the positive. But at the same token, we need to be realistic. And if we're honest with the people around us, they'll understand our injuries a little bit better. It makes it better for travel. It makes it better for family and friendship when they know the honest answers of what you're tolerable for, um, what you're capable of doing. And yeah, there's times we're going to push through. The jarhead in me says I'm not going to stop doing something just because I'm sick. But at the same token, I have to be smarter now that I'm in my 50s and say, you know what? The jarhead title's still there, but I've learned to get past that mental manipulation that I would put on myself normally and just say, "Bo, today's not the day."
Right. And I've got a lot of friends and family, that did a lot of military service and have a lot of issues after service.
Right.
And it's funny you mentioned this. And Mike, we never know where our podcast is going to take us. But I
Sure.
was talking with a friend of mine the other day, and he's got some pretty significant issues with PTSD. And we were
Right.
having some conversations, and he said people are a lot more understanding when he tells them what's going on that day. That hey, he's having a bad day and maybe can't make this event or needs to be by himself right then. If you
Sure.
don't disclose that type of thing, and again, everybody's different, but he was telling me that whenever he discloses to his wife and lets her know what he's going through that day, they're a lot more understanding than if he's just you know pissed off at the world that day, and people are thinking he's a jerk. But if he tells them
Right.
what's going on, people understand that a lot more. And that's the same way in my life with my spinal cord injury. If I say, hey, this is what's going on with me, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not telling you I don't want to be at your event or I don't want to be at the family gathering. It's
Right.
hard for me because of this or that.
Absolutely, man. And that's the thing. Everybody thinks PTSD is only associated with first responders or military or whatever. Post traumatic stress occurs to everyone. We all face stress every day. You've got kids that are doing it. It's a real thing. I think that there's a fine line that we have to walk with it. A lot of people look for excuses or look for ways out, but things like PTSD do exist. We just need to figure out to not manipulate it to the point where it becomes a crutch. But at the same time, um, we all have stressors, and if we do not healthy find a healthy alternative for how to get through those stressors can manifest itself enough that it really compounds, man, and becomes a real attack on your system, if you will. And it can be so detrimental sometimes that it shuts the people down around us. And you're right. Open communication and honesty um, are the keys to it, because nobody can read what's going on in our heads. Um, and even with Elon Musk's all his new capabilities, I don't think anybody will ever be mind readers to the point where they can just say, today's not my day. I'm having some issues, and again, it's not a cop out. It's real, and so we just have to figure out what's our triggers, what sets us off, what doesn't, and figure out healthy ways to get back in the game.
And you say it all the time, Mike. We're meeting people where they are, and if you can recognize what somebody's going through and recognize what we're going through ourselves, open communication solves a
Right.
lot of problems before they ever even occur. You know,
Sure. And that's I use a couple hashtags that are always there. Just keep pushing. Yada yada. But at the same token, sometimes, man, and I've said this on the Roar property and around a lot of our guys, we stay small by design. That doesn't mean small minded, but if we have a bunch of people that come out to do an event, to shoot or do whatever, your guys are going to give you, and I say guys in the general term, if I ask how you're doing, they're all going to give me the same answer. Oh, I'm good. I'm good. And they're not, man. They're
yep.
just not. And if we want to get down to the heart of people, and I think, man, I know you. I know that that's where these podcasts are going now, meeting people where they are. And it comes down to, I want to know how you are doing physically and mentally. And I just want to make sure that we're leaving our group, our core people, those with disabilities or organizations that work with them, in the best health that they can be in. And two, finding new ways that we can all partner together. It's the only way anything's going to work is if we all group up and we figure out how to make this thing run smoothly.
That is well said, man. And when we deal with people on an individual level, we get to the true heart of what they're feeling sometimes. Uh,
Right.
when we form relationships with people, not meeting them just once, but meeting with people several times, developing friendships, that's when you get the true answer. When
Right.
people ask me, Greg, how you doing today? I don't even think about it. Doing good, doing great,
Yeah.
easy day. That's not always
Right.
the case. And if you're my friend, if you're my brother, I'm gonna really tell you
Right.
sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I'll tell you really how I am feeling. And maybe that I do need a hand that day or an ear or a shoulder. And I get that. I've got a good support group around me that when I ask for help, I can get it. Not
Right.
everybody has that, and I wish everyone did because it's so important.
Man, I couldn't have said it better, man. It comes down to, that's how we process PTSD. That's how we process stressors around us. What are your triggers? But then also, how do you revert back to assessing that, understanding what the processes are, getting that stress under control. And we all face it. That's the kicker. It doesn't matter what your job is. Some of it can come from work. Some of it's traumatic stress. It's stuff going on around you. And you're right. If you don't have a personal relationship with somebody, you're gonna get a generic answer. My guys that I truly hold as my brothers, it's even hard for me some days just to break down and say, "Man, I'm struggling a little bit." But if it's somebody on the street, they're never going to get an answer from me. They're always going to get that same go-to, "Man, I'm good. No worries. Let's keep getting it, man. I'm jam up." Um, and we have to build mutually beneficial partnerships. I say that a lot. We're not reinventing the wheel. No nonprofit, no organization can do it all. We need to work together. But bigger than that, man, if we do not build partnerships and open up an empathetic dialogue where people can sit down and know who Greg Traynor is, um, from his standpoint. Nobody's going to ever understand paralysis if you're able bodied. I can put you in a chair and we could talk about transferring. We can go through the whole synopsis of how do you get in a chair and how do you move from here to there. It's the secondary things that will wear you out. Um, and so we can talk about the logistics of how do you get from A to B in a wheelchair. But when it comes down to it, man, most people will tell you it is the other stuff that psychologically just breaks you down at times.
Yes, sir. The day to day, day in and day out for years, and we have to all find a way to deal with it in the best way that we can. And how I deal with it, how you deal with it, might be different, but we have to find a solution to it to keep pushing through it.
Man, I think you said something earlier. Time on the farm. Man, I'm gonna tell you, nature, it comes back to it again, Greg. We've been doing these podcasts for a long time, and nature's one of those spots. It always helps me reset. If I can be out and just find a place that's calm, quiet, I can kind of center myself. Not everybody can do that. We have to learn how to do it, and that's one of the things I think the military and law enforcement was really good for me, in that it lets you know who you are. That your body will go a lot farther than your mind will set it. Um, but at the same token, that don't mean you're not breakable. Um, we all have a breaking point, but man, nature's just one of those places. It doesn't matter how bad my day is. If I can see a little bit of sunshine and maybe a bird flying by, it could be that simple. Just getting back outside for a few minutes, man, with breeze blowing, and maybe a turkey in the distance, whatever it is. We just have to find our center point. You know,
Man, I couldn't say that any better. And we've been you know advocating for the outdoors for the last 20-25 years. You and I have been telling people about the healing prospects of nature. And when Beth and I and the family bought the farm last year, and it's just a little piece of land.
sure,
It doesn't have to be something huge. I mean, you could go to a park to
right,
really appreciate the beauty of nature. But that's definitely my happy place where I like to be. And it doesn't have to be something big. It could be watching a bird, could be watching the bees pollinate the trees. I mean, I try to find the true joy and happiness in nature. And man, that's my happy spot. So I appreciate being outdoors, and if people can get out, they should definitely take advantage of it.
absolutely, man. And that's what's exciting. I know you and Beth are working, so it'll be a place for you to bring your family and friends, and I have no doubt you'll bring some folks out with disabilities and whatnot. And that's what we're doing. You're right. You don't have to have 1,000 acres or whatever. Um, we're working a small spot, and I want it to be holistic. I talk to people when they come out and when they stroll on the property with me, and I show them everything we're putting in place. And by all means, we're nowhere close to what my dream and desires are. And it's not just me. There's a whole group of guys and girls that we get together and we talk about, what we can do to center people. And it comes back to where the little piece of property that we have, I want it to be where it's a respite care place. We take care of the family, the whole dynamic. But man, I want it to be so holistic, Greg, that when you roll on, there's everything is organized, even in nature. I don't want it to be overdeveloped. And um I want it to be one of those places where we have flowers in place and we have this and that. So when you come in, it's a complete mindset, complete change, Man, I get excited about it, buddy.
I do too, brother. We've come a long way, and we know what we want, and we're working towards getting it. You've been doing it for a number of years. I'm kind of new at this gentleman farmer thing, that we're laying things out, we're buying plants, we're just so excited for the future. And I think having hope, being hopeful, this
Right.
past year has really turned around my mindset. and made me just such a more positive person. And I just can't be more thankful than I am. Um, with that being said, buddy, I'm going to start coughing here in a little bit.
Okay.
Uh, do you have anything else that you want to talk about this week? Because this was a whole different podcast than what we usually do. But
Right.
I think I'm going to have to wrap it up here in a minute or two.
Man, I get it, buddy. And if you want to hold on just a second, I'll close this out. It's one of those things, Greg, man. We never know what we're facing in life, but we're not facing it all alone. Um, Man, I appreciate you taking time, even though you're not feeling well, to come on and continue the podcast. This week was not what we intended. We had some folks lined up. They're going through some stuff. We're praying for you guys. Don't think that we're upset with you. We're good, I promise. But man, you go get to feeling better, and man, we'll get right back after it. We got some good podcasts coming. You guys stick with us, man. We love y'all.